Hey, future pilots, prepping for those PPL ground exams? Well, you are in exactly the right place. We're skipping all the fluff today and diving straight into the exact rules you absolutely need to pass the UK Air Law and Communications exams. Let's crush this! Here's our flight plan for today. We're looking at the three main categories, then inside air traffic control, flight info and air ground, safety comm and alerting, outside controlled airspace, and finally, radar versus non-radar services. This top-down approach is literally the absolute best way to organize this in your head for test day. Section 1, the three main categories, the big picture. Okay, let's dive into this. To get a grip on UK airspace, you really got to start right at the top. So, air traffic services in the UK fall into three main buckets. You've got air traffic control, flight information service, and air/ground communications service. Now, pay super close attention to the core objectives of ATC. They exist to prevent collisions, both up in the air and down on the maneuvering area, expedite the flow of traffic, provide safe advice, and notify search and rescue if things go wrong. Seriously, memorize that list. It's classic exam question fodder. And remember the golden rule for compliance here. IFR traffic absolutely must comply with ATC. VFR traffic, well, you comply unless you're unable to, in which case you've got to speak up and request an alternative clearance. Section 2. Inside air traffic control, from airways to the ramp. Now that we've got the big picture, let's step down into the highly structured, very strict world of air traffic control. All right, the absolute secret weapon for the comms portion of your exam is matching the service to the radio call sign suffix. You want to commit these to memory. If you're talking to an area control center handling en route IFR airways, the suffix is control. Think London control or Scottish control. When you get closer to an aerodrome, you hit approach control. If it's a massive, busy unit actively vectoring your radar, you'll hear radar or director. But at a smaller airport where they just use time or altitude rules for procedural separation, the suffix is simply approach. Hooking that suffix to the level of service is a guaranteed way to score easy points. Once you're actually right at the airport, things split up again. Let's break down the difference between the aerodrome control functions. Ground is totally in charge of you while you're taxiing around the maneuvering area, right up to the holding point. But the exact second you need to enter the active runway, fly the circuit, or land, you switch over to tower. Now, keep in mind, smaller airfields usually don't have the luxury of two separate controllers sitting there, so they just combine the whole shebang under the tower call sign. Section 3. Flight info and air ground dropping down a tier. Let's move on and see how this builds, stepping out of strict control and dropping down into advisory services. First up, we have the flight information service, using the suffix information. They give you incredibly useful data to keep your flight safe, but, and this is huge, it is not a control service in the air. You, the pilot, make the final decisions. Then, stepping down again, you've got the air/ground communication service, which uses the suffix radio. This is literally the most basic service you'll find at small airfields. And honestly, a word to the wise, the radio operator might just be sitting in a windowless room enjoying a cup of tea. They might not even be able to see the airfield. So yeah, definitely don't ask them what the cloud bases look like on short final. All right, let's put you in the hot seat for a quick mock exam scenario. You're flying out in the countryside, approaching a small, unattended airfield. You check your charts and, nope, there is no allocated VHF frequency listed. So, what frequency do you tune into? Think about it for a second. Section 4, Safety Comm and Alerting, the uncontrolled lifelines. If you guessed Safety Comm, you completely nailed it. Let's take a look at these crucial fail-safes in our airspace system. Okay, I need you to practically burn these exact numbers into your memory because the limits for safety comm are highly testable. The frequency is 135.475 megahertz. You use it at those unattended aerodromes without a dedicated frequency. But here is the catch. You should only make transmissions when you are below 2,000 feet above aerodrome level and when you are within 10 nautical miles of the landing site. Basically, do not clog up this shared frequency when you're cruising at 5,000 feet miles away. Now, right alongside your comms, you have the alerting service. It's elegantly simple, really. It's automatically provided to any aircraft known to air traffic services. If you're talking to them, they know you're there. And if things go completely sideways and you happen to drop off the radar, they are the ones who automatically trigger the appropriate organizations for search and rescue. It's kind of like your invisible safety net. Section 5. Outside controlled airspace. The Wild West. So, the crucial point is, what actually happens when you leave those heavily managed zones entirely? Welcome to the Wild West of Class F and G airspace. Air Traffic Services Outside Controlled Airspace, or ATSOCAS, is where you are going to spend a ton of your time as a PPL. You really need to pay attention to the golden rule here. Out in this airspace, you are ultimately responsible for collision avoidance and terrain clearance. Winging it and hoping ATC will magically save you is definitely not a valid strategy here, because out here, you're on your own. Now, you can request one of 4 services from a lower airspace radar service, or LARS. That's basic, traffic, deconfliction, or procedural. LARS is generally available up to flight level 100 within about 30 nautical miles of the radar unit. Section 6. Radar versus non-radar services, rebuilding the matrix. So, those 4 services we just mentioned, in your textbook, they probably look like an incredibly dense, terrifying wall of text. We're going to reconstruct those tables right now into something you can actually memorize. Let's kick things off with the non-radar services. First, basic service. This is available to both BFR and IFR. It gives you weather and aerodrome info, but absolutely no traffic info should be expected. You just got to look out the window. By contrast, procedural service adds specific instructions to deconflict you from other participating traffic using time, altitude, and distance. But notice the huge exam trap here. Procedural service is strictly for IFR flights only. It is not available to VFR flights, so don't get tricked on test day. And this brilliantly illustrates the radar-based equivalence. A traffic service gives you radar-derived info about other aircraft to help you spot them, and it's available for both IFR and VFR. But deconfliction service? Here, the controller actually gives you specific headings and altitudes to actively separate you from observed traffic. And just like procedural, deconfliction is for IFR flights only. Now, regardless of which service you're under, I have a question. Who is responsible for terrain clearance? You, the pilot, always. Now, if you do fly IFR later down the road and use a deconfliction service, you've got to know the exact spacing the controller is trying to achieve. Against unknown traffic, they aim to keep you 5 nautical miles away laterally or 3,000 feet away vertically. However, if both aircraft are talking to the exact same controller, those minimums can safely be reduced down to 3 nautical miles laterally and 1,000 feet vertically. Fire these precise numbers into your memory banks right now because they absolutely love testing this. So I really want to leave you with this final thought as you study. Every time you key the mic in uncontrolled Class G airspace, are you just waiting for a controller to guide you to safety? Or are you keeping your head on a swivel and your eyes firmly outside that cockpit? Remember the golden rule out there. You are the pilot in command. And that covers the absolute vital rules of air law and comms. If this explainer helped clear the fog for you, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more targeted PPL ground school explainers. Keep those textbooks open, stay sharp, and best of luck on your exams. You've totally got this.